Why do some rifles shoot differently with different ammunition? And how does cold change the trajectory of your bullets? And finally, Mark thinks you're a bunch of rubes. Hi, everyone. Ron Spomer with Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast, and some good questions and some folks chewing me out. As usual, let's jump right in with some of our patrons on Patreon. This is Wolfgang from Austria. We have had him on the show before. He's pretty good about giving us some interesting perspectives from Europe. Let's see what he has to say this time. Hi, Ron. I really love your videos, and I get a lot of useful information. Most of the time, I watch them when my wife is not at home because she thinks that I always get expensive and, according to her, stupid ideas after watching your videos. Regarding your 30-06 Roundup videos, most likely you've explained it before, but again, my question is, why are rifles shooting differently with different ammunition? Is it the twist rate? Is it bullet construction, lead or no lead, or is it the caliber? After watching your video, I was checking with my 50-year-old 7x64 rifle with 3 different kinds of ammo with different bullet weights, but I didn't see a significant difference in the precision. Even without cleaning, after changing ammo, I get around 1 MOA groups. The best results I get with lead-free are from 126 RWS bullet, and I get 0.7 minute of angle. Is it possible that, depending on the caliber, rifles are more sensitive? I talked to a hunting friend of mine, and he does seem the same issues with his 757 Mauser. Thanks for your answer and all the best. So I wrote back. I said, Wolfgang, give my apologies to your wife, but keep watching my videos for more stupid and expensive ideas. As for your serious question, different rifles shoot differently for a frustrating variety of reasons, but it's mainly barrel harmonics, I think. When powder gases push a tightly fitting bullet down a bore with pressures as high as 65,000 psi, that's enough to squeeze the bullet's diameter slightly and, of course, carve rifling grooves into the side of it. The barrel steel literally flexes, it bulges, and it almost whips like a wet noodle. I know that seems impossible given its strength and its stiffness. Steel barrel wiggling? Swelling? Doesn't sound right, but it happens. The degree of this warping plays a huge role in accuracy. If the muzzle is moving violently and inconsistently from shot to shot, well, your bullets will disperse wildly. If the muzzle happens to be in or near a quick rest stop in its oscillation, sort of like a tossed ball hitting the peak before it comes back down, it pauses. If your bullet can leave the muzzle with something like that, well, that increases your accuracy. Consistent barrel vibration or harmonics result from consistent ammunition. Powder and primer must ignite consistently and produce consistent pressures. Bullets must be consistent in diameter and mass so that they exit at the same position in the muzzle. And there are nodes in the vibrations of your barrel where this happens. So hand loaders will try different component combinations to discover such a node in their barrels, and then they try to build consistently precise ammo to match that. Different bullet weights and designs and materials will change those nodes. Now, if a barrel launches consistently, the bullets must also be consistent to be accurately, and they have to be balanced perfectly. A cup and core bullet, for instance, might have an air pocket between the lead core and the gilding metal jacket, which causes imbalance. An unbalanced ogive can increase yaw. All of this noted, why do some barrels seem to shoot everything really well? Well, I don't know, luck of the draw. Some steels just seem to suffer inherent stresses that alter the harmonics and others don't. Hot versus cold barrels can change your steel stresses, and that is why they invented cryogenic freezing that realigns your crystalline structures. Thick, heavy barrels seem to warp less than thin, light barrels. Long barrels whip more than short, stiff barrels. Stock bedding can also alter your barrel harmonics. The alignment of the barrel to the receiver and bolt face can alter bullet dispersion. Even slight differences in locking lug tension within the receiver recesses can change your accuracy. Heck, even the violence of the firing pin spring movement can screw up accuracy. So here's a fun experiment. If you can, lie prone on the floor and put a bipod under your rifle. And with your rifle empty, no ammo anywhere near for safety, cock your rifle and get behind it prone, ready to shoot. Have someone balance a small coin like a U.S. dime on the muzzle so that it sits precariously right there. Then concentrate on making your smoothest, steadiest shot. Does the dime fall off? You are either jerking the rifle enough to make that happen, or the striker spring action itself is violent enough to shake it off. Such vibrations can ruin accuracy. In the main, I think it is inherently the steel stresses in the barrel that lead to one barrel shooting poorly, while another one will shoot well with one particular load, for instance. So get one of those latter barrels and consider yourself darn lucky. If you've got a barrel that shoots 150 grain bullet, 175 grain, 190 grain, whatever the categories with your particular cartridge are, that's pretty impressive. So if you get one of those, keep it. A gun maker once told me that he has really no idea why one barrel shoots perfectly while another one struggles. He has studied them up one side and down the other, and he's looked at them with high magnification with a bore scope, and he says sometimes one looks absolutely perfectly smooth and it groups like a shotgun. And the next one will look terrible, rusted and pitted and worthless, and it shoots beautifully. So go figure. Even the best barrels from the best barrel makers, sometimes you'll kick out a lemon. The best you can do then is just move on. Okay. I hope that helped there, buddy. Now here is another patron, Ted. He says, "Hey, Ron, always informative videos. Thanks a lot. I happen to have a Dakota Model 10 in 757 Mauser, much like my Park West 757 Mauser. He says, mine is by far the sweetest handling rifle I own." I know what you're saying there, Ted. Whoa, what a sweet handling rifle. For offhand shooting, it is my absolute favorite. Unlike yours, though, it's accurate. Oh, but yours is beautiful, so I am willing to take it off your hands for, say, $5,000. That's a right charitable offer, I'd say, given that after trying 2 different bullets with mediocre results, you've exhausted all possibilities for achieving accuracy. No need to thank me. I was just feeling your pain. Please advise when you'll be shipping the rifle. Sincerely, old Ted. Nice try, Ted. Ain't happening. Wait till you see some upcoming videos on this rifle. I found a load that it likes. All right, let's hear from Jeremy, another patron. Jeremy says, "I love your 7mm cartridges from Around the World book. I just finished reading it and I enjoyed every bit of it." Well, that was sweet and simple, and I really appreciate it. That is Jeremy, one of our patrons. If any of you are interested in joining our Patreon community, go to patreon.com and then look for Ron Spomer Outdoors, and all the instructions for signing up will be right there. Essentially, you're becoming a patron of the arts, even though there's very little art involved in these shows. But you just help us out and show that you're supporting us and you appreciate what we're doing. So we really appreciate all of our patrons. And speaking of such, here's another one, Johan. "Is it possible for you to do a podcast about the GS custom bullets? I used to be able to purchase them here locally in South Africa, but then they moved or immigrated to the USA. Boy, that's a bummer. Yeah, I will look into that, Johan. I have not used GS custom bullets. I've heard about them fairly often from South Africans, as I understand that it is an all-copper bullet, lathe-turned like our hammer bullets over here. So I would assume that they're pretty darn accurate and deadly, because, boy, these hammers certainly are. So I will look into those. If anyone is working for GS custom bullets and you would like us to work with your bullets, write in, get a hold of us, and let's see if we can't put something together. Now here is patron Peter. "I fell in love with my buddy's gun." Whew. Thought for when I first read that it was my buddy. I'm glad it's his gun. "He showed me a new gun. It was new to him. He had gotten it from his father. It's a Winchester 3855. Oh, this is going back. It has the short carbine barrel and a large loop, so this is a lever action rifle. It is also made in the USA gun. I like that. It has beautiful engravings on the receiver. I'm thinking it'd be a great Ohio deer hunting straight-walled cartridge. I only have maybe 150 yards max to shoot, but the gun has never been shot. That kills me. I don't like the idea of safe queen rifles. So I'm working on my buddy. I think if I show him some cash, he will part with it. But what do you think of the 38-55 Winchester, Ron? I know I would have to hand load for it, but it is something different, and I like that. Peter. Well, Peter, first of all, you don't have to hand load for it. I'm pretty sure Winchester still offers loads in 38-55, and I think maybe Federal does, and Hornady probably does, maybe Nosler. And then there are these boutique ammo makers, small lots, and they offer it, several of those. So you can find some, but hand loading would be fun and appropriate. Now, about this thing. The 38-55 was initially the Ballard. Ballard was famous for target rifles. And the 38-55 is reportedly a good, or was at least in the black powder era, a great target cartridge. So Winchester picked it up because it was also a pretty darn effective hunting cartridge, and they put it in their, I think it was their 86 lever action rifle, the one that's also chambered for the 45-70, some of the bigger stuff. And it became pretty darn popular, and they sort of, now they say it sort of was the 30-30 of the 1890s into the 1900s or something. But of course in 94, Winchester came out with the Model 94 and the 30-30. But did you know this? The first year that rifle was produced, it was chambered for the 38-55, but not the 30-30. The 30-30 smokeless wasn't quite ready yet, so they didn't come out with that one until the next year, 1895. So the first available was the 38-55 in the Model 94 Winchester lever action. There was one other one in there, and I forget what that one was. At any rate, even to this day, the 38-55 is considered a pretty darned effective woods rifle for whitetail and probably even elk. It throws about 100 and, let me think, more like a 250 grain to 265 grain sort of bullet. I think they're .375 calibers. In fact, the .375 Winchester that came out in, I think, 1978 was essentially this same 38-55, but it was loaded hotter because it was designed for a beefed-up Model 94 lever-action rifle. I think they called them the Big Bore series. They didn't last real long because, in general, after 30-30, most people are done with lever actions. They'll go to a 45-70, for instance, but then not a lot of others really seem to take off in those. And this one didn't. But yeah, the .375 is almost the same as the 38-55, loaded to higher pressures. There's some slight differences to keep the two from interchanging and things, I think. But that's kind of the story on that one. If you're looking for a woods rifle, similar to what you would want a 30-30 for, I think this 38-55 would be a fun one. Certainly going to put a bigger hole in him. Okay, thanks for that one, Peter. And hey, good luck with that rifle. By the way, much as you hate safe queens, if this is an original from way back in the 19th century and it's never been fired, you better check the value on that thing as a collector's item. It might change your mind about safe queens, but wait until you've got it bought from your buddy. All right, let's see what David has to ask us about cold air's impact on trajectory. He first says, thanks for the welcome, sir. So when he joined Patreon, I wrote him and told him we were tickled to have him supporting us and be watching for our newsletters and early releases on all of our videos and podcasts and such, and ask me any questions. And he said, hey, great, here's a question. I just watched your video on the old and new 7mm PRC ammo velocity testing. I've been wondering about the effects of not only altitude but air temperatures on velocities. Right now in West Texas, we're seeing triple digits every day. So would my 300 Win Mag shoot the same as when it's 50 degrees out? Also, I am planning on trying my hand at one of Tate's hunts next year, hence the altitude part of the question. I'm truly enjoying the information you're posting. Thanks for the great shows. Okay, little information on Tate. Tate is a relatively new young friend of ours who is an outfitter around here for elk hunts and such, and he is starting a school for elk hunting. He's going to teach people how to elk hunt. In addition to leading guided hunts, he also does sort of semi-guided hunts where he sets you up and says, here's a good spot to look for this and that, and here's where you can expect to shoot different distances and pretty much everything you need to know. But the school is a great way to learn that stuff so you can go out and be successful on your own. But it sounds like David is going on a hunt with Tate, so he's going to get a lot of this stuff taught to him during the hunt. Now, his question about the cold weather, I answered this way. I went a lot colder than 50 degrees, just to sort of set things up. Thanks, David. Yes, hotter air will reduce drag because it's thinner. Cold air is more dense, and that means your bullets are going to strike lower because there's more drag with thicker air. The difference isn't huge until longer ranges. At 300 yards, a typical .308 Winchester 150 grain bullet at 2,800 feet per second would drop 3/4 of an inch more at 0 degrees Fahrenheit than at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But at 600 yards, the difference would be about 8 inches. And at 1,000 yards, a massive 60 inches more drop at that cold temperature. So it is significant with distance. There will be similar changes to the wind deflection, the time of flight, and the remaining energy. You can educate yourself and have fun discovering this stuff with an online ballistic calculator such as shooterscalculator.com. And I recommend everybody get one of those. There are many of them online. They're free. You learn to use one of those, enter all your information, and then you can change things up and see these differences. Like, what happens if I suddenly am shooting my rifle that I zeroed at 90 degrees and now I'm hunting in the cold, cold mountains of Colorado late season and it's only 10 degrees? Is this going to be a big problem? You can learn all of that stuff with his ballistic calculators. All right, great question there, David. Thanks for posting that. And let me think here. Nothing there. Let's go to here. We've got something from Anthony. Oh, these are ones that Betsy pulled together for me, so who knows where this one's going to go, guys. We'll see what kind of trouble I'm in this week or if she's in love with me again. Anthony says, I like your rifle. Well, thank you. I do too. Which rifle? Oh, I think Betsy did you real fine. Oh, this is the fancy Park West Arms SD10 single-shot rifle in 757 Mauser. A beauty. And Anthony thinks it's beautiful too. He says, it's a beautiful piece, and you got it from a beautiful woman. Enjoy. Well, Anthony, I will enjoy both of those. My beautiful rifle and my beautiful wife who made the rifle beautiful with the help of the connoisseurs and the craftsmen at Park West Arms. Yeah, it truly is a gorgeous piece. And Betsy, over the years, has learned to appreciate what a beautiful rifle means to me. So she, behind my back, asked them to tweak it a little bit to make it even prettier than what I ordered up front. And it is an absolute gem. And so is Betsy. But as we read through here, we might have to change our opinion of that one. Let's see what else she's got. Pawpaw Woodshop. Ron, please get rid of that Park West rifle. Uh-oh. Send it to me so I can suffer with it. I see where Pawpaw Woodshop is going here. I am sure that I can endure owning such a disappointing rifle. Don't hold your breath, Pawpaw Woodshop, but nice try. I can appreciate that. This is Fry Bry. Stop being cheap and put up another paper target. That was short and to the point. I get a lot of these. I am a cheapskate. This is really funny. So here I am with this, I'll admit it, $10,000 plus rifle. And I'm shooting at paper targets again and again and again and getting my holes confused because I'm too cheap to put up another sheet of paper. I know, guys. I can't explain it. Oh, man. All right, here's Mark. Oh, this is a guy who thinks we're a bunch of rubes. I read this earlier. Every week, it's the same thing, only a different series. Anything to post content to drive up viewership and his income. His refers to me, I'm sure. I don't want to deny anyone an opportunity to get ahead, but crying out loud, publish something useful. Apparently, I'm publishing useless garbage. Next, it'll be what's the fastest, shortest cases, followed by the skinny, long cases, and then the pointiest bullets available, and then the most blunt bullets, and whatever Ron can find to pound his gums about. Woo! Yeah, I'll give him credit. It's a paying proposition because there's a line of rubes waiting for another dose every time he puts out a notification. It's like feeding the pigeons. Oh, man. So, guys, you're either rubes or pigeons, and I don't know what that makes me, a pigeon feeder? But shame on me for wanting to increase my viewership and make a little income. That is anti-American. The whole idea with these YouTube videos is to get no one to watch them and go in the hole and lose all your money and go broke. I don't know that Mark quite understands this whole program, but thanks for your, well, I can't say thanks for your loyal viewership because I don't think you're going to be watching anymore or listening. But hey, Mark, I've got to say this. In apologies for my useless material, I always offer money back for anyone who watches for nothing on YouTube. So I will send you your money back. Oh, gosh, a sin to make money. That's terrible. All right, this is Wolfman. Let's hope he has something nicer to say, or he's going to take a bite out of me with a name like Wolfman. I don't know. Fellers, with all due respect, you spend thousands and thousands of dollars on rifles. Goodness gracious. Put up a new target. Yeah, the no target guys again. But he also has a useful point here. He says, label who is shooting what so that you can keep track of it. That's a good point. It wouldn't be so bad if we would go down to the target and mark things and keep track of them, because every once in a while we'll get a flyer and we can't tell where it's gone or who shot it. Also, I may be wrong, but I don't think it was the match ammo that was in question. I thought it was the precision hunter ammo for that 7mm PRC. Oh, yeah. I got you there. So I did this test to see if the new PRC, the 7mm PRC from Hornady, was shooting as slowly as a lot of people were complaining about. They were saying it's like 200 feet per second slower than advertised. And I had some original ammo that I tested, and it was pretty close to the advertised velocity. I think it was within 50 feet per second or something. I finally got a hold of some newly made in a different lot, so this would be the powder they're using now. Supposedly the original powder is no longer available, so they had to find a substitute, and they cannot get their velocities back up. And people are mad as hornets because they still say on the box that it should go 2,975 feet per second, I think. Well, I tried them side by side using that 180 grain bullet that I had, and that's the reason why I didn't use the Precision Hunter ammo. I don't know if that's the one folks are complaining about or not. I just figured any 7 PRC from Hornady was the problem. And what I did come up with was there was about 100 to 120 feet per second less velocity out of the new loads than the old one. So take that into account if you're looking to buy that ammo. You know, I wasn't really all that worked up about this because all my life it's kind of been assumed that the rifle ammunition manufacturers were stating the velocity on their boxes according to their test barrels. Didn't necessarily mean I was going to get it. And we also assumed that they were going to put, like the Boy Scouts, the best construction on everything and give you the best data they had. And then they could always say, well, every rifle is different, so you don't necessarily get the same mileage, which is true. But people are just really thinking that Hornady is pulling the wool over their eyes and cheating them, and they should be ashamed of themselves and everything else. I don't know. What do you think? I think it probably does make sense for a company who does have a major change in their velocity to note that on their boxes. But I always say once I get ammunition, I need to test it, chronograph it, or else just shoot it and check the drops against the projected drops and find out exactly what it's doing. But let me know what you think. I don't know. We've kind of worn this thing out. A lot of people are upset, and others say, hey, I just measure my own. I don't expect it necessarily, but I get your point. Okay, let's see. No, Kaboom. Kaboom says I should change my paper targets. All right, we've heard enough about changing targets here. Whether or not I'll actually do it, I don't know, but it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Here's Shane asking about barrel cleaners. Good, we'll get off the paper. I don't clean my barrels with paper, so we'll go to cotton. What do you use to get a barrel really clean? I clean my rifles every time I shoot them. Oh, you don't have to do that, Shane. I'll tell you why here in a bit. I use Hoppe's. I assume that's Hoppe's number 9, an old carbon removing cleaner that's just been around forever and does a job. Absolutely works. And a bronze brush, and then I follow it up with dry patches. I'm not sure what else to do. However, I just bought a Browning X-Bolt in .308, and it has not performed quite right. It always throws one shot, driving me nuts. Is there something I should try as far as cleaning goes? No, I don't think throwing a wild shot now and then has anything to do with your cleaning regimen here, Shane. What do you use to get a barrel really clean? I clean my rifles every time. No, that's the same thing over again. Okay. All right, let's go to barrel cleaning, guys. We do it over and over again, but there are always new shooters coming online who don't quite know what to do because there's so much confusing advice out there. My discovery over all these decades is that I don't need to clean a barrel until it's no longer doing what it's supposed to do. In other words, if I've worked up my loads and I've got this sweet rifle that shoots MOA, I just keep shooting it as long as it's still grouping MOA. But if I notice it's starting to go to 1.5 consistently, maybe I need to clean it to make it shoot properly again. And generally, it does. So that's how I decide to clean. So if you're going on some big elaborate hunt and you want to make darn sure your rifle's still working properly, do some shooting to get tuned up and all, and notice what your group sizes are. And then if you need to clean it. And then shoot a fouling shot or 3. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 before your barrel returns to shooting that same point of aim and all the rest of it. And then you're ready to go again until it no longer shoots. The only other reason to clean a barrel is really not so much to clean it as to protect it from rust, which means put some oil down it. And then the next time you go out to fire it, be sure you push it out. Otherwise, what are you cleaning? The rifle still shoots well. It's nothing that needs to be fixed by cleaning. Now, if you're playing around with different loads and trying to find the most accurate one and stuff, it probably does pay to clean the barrel after the previous test loads and stuff in case one bullet doesn't like to be shot through the barrel followed by the other. I haven't found this to be a big issue with typical bullets. If they're all gilding metal jacketed bullets, doesn't matter if there's a lead core in it or not, or if it's a half lead core and half copper or something else. It's the gilding metal that touches the rifling that's changing up this accuracy issue. What you do have an issue with consistently is copper over gilding metal. So if you're shooting traditional bullets and you go to copper and you have lousy accuracy, don't condemn the copper bullets until you've cleaned that barrel down to bare steel and started over only shooting copper. Same thing, 2, 3, 4 fouling shots and then test for group sizes. Quite often you'll see that you're getting superior accuracy out of those copper bullets fired from a clean barrel to start. Other than that, you don't have to clean unless your barrel's just not working, but do keep it from rusting. And I think that answered all your questions and why you shouldn't clean all that often. As far as that 308 throwing shots, I would look at the bedding on that one. What often happens is that the free floating, if it is free floated, is tight enough that when your barrel warms up and changes its vibrations a little bit, it might be hitting one side of the channel. You might want to check for that. Take a sheet of paper like this, wrap it around your barrel, and then slide it back through the channel on your stock and see if it jams up or it gets real tight in one spot. You might have to sand out a little bit in that barrel channel to clear that up. Also, check your bedding screws. How tight are they? They should be good and tight. And each manufacturer says, you want to tighten that front bedding screw to 25 inch-pounds or some as high as 40. I've seen some as high as 65. Just make sure it's darn tight. The one at the back by the tang, you don't necessarily have to make all that tight. And sometimes making it really tight is deleterious to good accuracy. It seems to put a little bit of a bend or a tension in the action. It doesn't work out well. So loosen that one a little bit and see if that changes things. A lot of other things that can affect your accuracy, but those are a couple of the easier ones to address. Okay. What else? Oh, I might say one more thing about Shane is cleaning that barrel for copper. I mentioned that you're going to get out all the carbon, but to get that copper out, you're going to have to use copper solvent, not Hoppy's number 9. The powder solvents get out the carbon, the soot, but not the copper. And gilding metal is the same as copper as far as cleaning it out. You need copper remover because gilding metal is 95% copper, 7% zinc. Copper remover will clean that out, the same as all copper bullets. Okay, good stuff, guys. Now, let's see. Boy, that almost makes me want to go up and clean a rifle. Maybe not quite. What does the team have for us here? Someone from Maine named Mark. I hope you're a little nicer than the last Mark we talked with. Hi, Ron. After many years of wanting to learn more about firearms and take care of and use a classic one, I inherited a rifle about 25 years ago. I'm finally carving out some time to begin my target shooting and hunting journey. Well, good. Glad to have you, and boy, you're going to have some fun. I really appreciate the information you share in your podcasts and your genuine enthusiasm. Your programs are both informative and entertaining. I have a few questions about Barrel management. Here we go. You mentioned when switching from lead core bullets to copper bullets, it's a good idea to clean the barrel down to steel. You also mentioned in the last podcast it's not a bad idea to clean the barrel when switching between various bullets and loads and manufacturers. So how does one actually know that the barrel has been adequately cleaned? Do you need any such tools to inspect the full length of the barrel? Also, if you're, for example, staying with lead core bullets, will switching the load and the manufacturer is going to make a difference? And should you clean the barrel between those? Are you saying look for patches to be perfectly clean or 90% clean or what? And how many passes should you make with your barrel brush? Oh, one last question. You often talk of letting the barrel cool when making a number of shots. I've also seen you mention on some of your videos when you need to pause due to it being pretty warm. So my question is, how do you gauge what is too warm? Does it literally feel hot or is it just noticeably warm? I know this can be a difficult subject without hard objective data. I have a traditional gun cleaning kit from Hoppies, and I also picked up a barrel snake for my 6.5. Thanks, Ron. Mark. Oh boy, Mark, bunch of questions there. Now we discussed the barrel cleaning quite a bit. I think the only thing I might add is, how do you know that it's clean? Yeah, your patches come out clean. Now, you don't have to get perfect cleanliness out of a barrel that you're shooting the same ammo in. In other words, if your accuracy starts to go south, you don't have to clean it down to bare steel. You can just clean it to, like you said, 90% or maybe even 80%. You just sort of have to get the thicker carbon fouling out of it. And you'll find that it will shoot more consistently with a little bit of fouling in the barrel. The only difference is when you go from a gilding metal jacketed bullet to an all copper. That's where the biggest problems seem to come in. And again, you say, like so many, if it's a lead core bullet, I have to clean. It's not the lead core that's making the difference. It's the gilding metal jacket that's touching the barrel. Then the copper bullet comes along, it touches the gilding metal, and that seems to be the conflict that ruins the accuracy. Why, I don't know, but it's there. All right, does that help it out? I think we've covered it. Oh, the heat on your barrel. Yeah, that's subjective. What we old shooters do is we put our hand on the barrel and just see if we can keep it there. You know, if you put it on there and say, boy, that's pretty hot. Oh, man, that's too hot. I'm not going to, you'll get a blister. That's too hot. But if you just have a warm barrel, you go, yeah, okay, we're all right. We can shoot some more. What's the concern? Burning out the barrel. A lot of people think we ruin barrels because the bullet is eroding it as it goes down. That's not what's happening. It's the flame coming out of that cartridge. So here sits your cartridge. It's got some free bore in the throat, and the bullet gets launched. And before the bullet hits the rifling, the gases are already in front of it, and they are extremely hot. It's like a blowtorch right on the start of the rifling, and it eventually breaks it up. The hotter it gets, the faster it breaks it up. And you get an inch or two of alligator cracking right there, and then your accuracy is gone. The rest of the barrel can be fine. It's not bullet friction, it's heat. So that's why we want to not shoot a hot barrel. Hope that answered the question for you there. Now, you mentioned a traditional kit from Hoppies and then a barrel snake. The barrel snake, I think most of us know what that is. It's this long rope, and it's got fat parts and skinny parts and some brush parts on. It's supposed to be a one-pass deal. And those work pretty well for a light cleaning. But for a really thorough cleaning, you need a good rod. Generally, you want a one-piece rod because the screwed together aluminum ones, either you're going to break them at some point at that joint. I've done that several times. Or the joint will come loose. Or you might get a loose joint and then hit the edge of your rifling with the edge of the joint on the rod. It's just not your best option. One-piece rods are what the pros use. So look for a one-piece cleaning rod. You can get them coated with nylons and different things, or you can go all brass, but then you've got some issues with your copper cleaner working on the brass rod. You can also get stainless steel. A lot of options there, but a good solid one-piece rod, and then you can really work that bore with your brushes and stuff to get things cleaned out. All right, we're going to Missouri with Brody. Brody says, Ron, I'm 18 years old. I've been hunting all my life at mostly small game. I enjoy listening to your podcast because at this stage in my life, I've got a lot of information to learn, and I find so much joy from listening to your stories about all the hunts that you've been on in faraway places. And it's just the general knowledge that you share about cartridges and firearms. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Mark. Was it Mark? No, that was Brody. Mark was the last guy. Thank you, Brody. Last season was the first deer season that I took very seriously because I would suffered a back injury in a high school softball game. I've only ever killed one whitetail buck. That was the November of 2020. Wow. However, I kind of botched it. I got out of my ladder stand and I slipped on the last step, banged the scope against the ladder, and then he missed his shot at his deer. It looks like he hit him poorly and he had to chase him down and everything else. So he wants to know, he can't get that scope to shoot now. So you probably damaged your scope. What should he do? Well, he wants to buy a new scope. So what should he get? He's shooting a Marlin 336. I'm looking for a new scope. I have my mind made up on a loophole, but I'm not sure the size. Okay. 336 Marlin, I'm guessing it's 30-30. It might be a 35 Remington or something similar, but it's not a long range. So you don't need a big long range scope. I know that. Those are all the rage these days. They're not appropriate for most hunting situations, especially on a lever action. That's probably good for a 200-yard shot. A scope is going to help you stretch out the range of that 30-30 because you can see the target. I'm really limited with open sights. I'm probably not going to shoot at 100 yards with an open sight. I did when I was younger, and it worked out fine, but not anymore. At any rate, the scope's going to solve all that for you. But you still have that rainbow trajectory of the 30-30 or the 35 Remington. So I think if you have a rangefinder and you know the distance specifically to your target, you could probably get out to 250 yards and still kill your deer with that 30-30 or 35. But most likely you're going to keep your shots inside of 200, probably 150. So a scope maxed out power of 8 should be more than good enough. So if you've got a 2-8 loophole or a 2-7 by 33 loophole, those are great scopes. I've used those for shots as far as 400 yards. And they're small, they're light, 1-inch tube. It's not going to overpower your rifle. You're going to maintain a little bit more of that quick feeling you get from one of those lever actions in the woods. That's what I would recommend. Look real hard at the VX3 in 2.5-8 by 36, or that 2-7. I think it's called the Freedom these days. They change those names a little bit every now and then, but pretty simple scope, but rugged as heck. And I trust that scope so much that I went on a wilderness trip up in British Columbia that involved like an hour of flying and then another day of hiking deep into the wilderness to take a stone sheep. And I used a 2-7 by 33 inexpensive loophole scope. 400-yard shot, bingo, one-shot kill. Worked perfectly. Still shooting it, great scope. Something like that's going to work out well for you. And stick with those 1-inch tubes. You don't need a great big 30 millimeter. There's no advantage in brighter with those things. Just gives you more adjustment room if you're doing the long-range shooting stuff, which you're not going to do with a Marlin 336. So that, I think, should work for you. Best of luck to you. I think you're going to do well with it, Brody. All right, Richard in Indiana. Ron, what are your views on the 8.6 Blackout for hunting? How does it compare to the 308 Winchester? I'm new to hunting. I've been torn between getting that 8.6 or the 308. I am not into long distance shooting, and I don't see myself going over 300 yards anytime soon. I would recommend for general purpose hunting out to 300 yards the 308, just because of its flatter trajectory. You're going to get less wind deflection, flatter trajectories, and all. But the 8.6 is interesting. 8.6 Blackout is a 6.5 Creedmoor case, shortened, and then the neck obviously holds a .338-inch diameter bullet. The idea with those initially, I think, was subsonic. They will shoot 300 grain bullets at about 1,000 feet per second. So that's subsonic. You put a suppressor on it, and you don't get the loud report to blow your ears out. But the bullet is heavy enough that its mass and momentum make up for its loss in velocity. But it's more difficult to put it on target at farther distances. You've got a rainbow trajectory to drop it in there. If you have a rangefinder, you know the precise distance and you know your trajectory tables, and you can dial your scope and do pretty darn well. I shot one out to 300 yards, and when we got the right dialing things all ironed out on it, it was pretty much one after another. But it's a little more problematic in the hunting fields when you might not have all the time in the world to get that stuff done. Whereas the 308's a lot more forgiving. You can get a maximum point-blank range on that for shooting deer at least out to 260 yards, probably 270 or even 280. That means you aim dead center on a deer's chest and you're going to hit it 3 inches high, 3 inches low, or right where you aimed, and you've got your deer. So a bullet that reaches out that far is going to be pretty darn versatile. That's the way I would look at it. So do some investigating, though, on that 8.6, because you can shoot 180 grain bullets in that at sonic velocities. I'm not sure exactly what they run. Are they going 1,700 feet per second? Perhaps, maybe 1,800. And that's getting up there towards 30 velocities, but you've got a longer, sleeker bullet with higher BC, so they'll shoot a little bit flatter, get better performance. It's worth looking into. We're going to be doing a lot more on the 8.6 Blackout. We toured a factory, the Q factory, where they manufacture the fix bolt-action rifle and chamber it for that 8.6. They also do some auto-loaders. They kind of invented it. I think they did invent it at Q, and they're pretty high on it, and that's where I got to do my initial shooting. And there's a rifle coming in soon that we're going to be working with out on the range, so we'll be getting a bunch of facts, figures, and information, and some good video on shooting that 8.6 Blackout. I think you guys might be impressed with what that thing does. Oh, and Betsy said we're going to do some new paper targets, too. I'll never live it down. Well, I guess I don't deserve to. There's another Indiana. This is Charles. I suppose Charles and Richard, you know each other because you both live in Indiana, right? What does Charles say? Thanks for taking the time to provide us with so much information. You're welcome, sir. I always look forward to the next podcast. I have what is probably a simple question. I really enjoy the writings of Patrick McManus, and I was wondering if you knew the man. And if so, have you any stories to share about him? Well, not a lot. I knew Patrick. I would see him now and then at some different events. But one time he and I were both invited to speak at a gathering of Outdoor Life when they still had a big magazine with a lot of staff. And they had all kinds of people there, and they wanted to expose them to some Western characters. So Patrick and I were both there giving presentations about one thing or another. What I noticed was that in person, he wasn't, you would have never thought, this is the guy who writes those incredibly funny stories, because he was just a normal guy, real nice guy, but he wasn't like making you laugh and roll on the floor until the campfire session with maybe a little bit of a libation. And he'd get to telling a story, and it was funny. I can remember when I was younger and teaching high school, I would sneak a Field and Stream. He was writing in the back page of Field and Stream in those years, if I remember right. And last period study hall, that was the time when the kids and the teachers and everybody were just ready to get the heck out of there. So the kids were fairly unruly, but so was the teacher, because if I got the place settled down and more or less had the students either sleeping or trying to do some homework, I would sneak that Field and Stream up and start reading Patrick McManus, and I'd just lose it. Could not do it. Of course, the kids right away are onto it. It's like, what's going on up there? Not a good way to maintain discipline in a class. Patrick was a piece of work. What a great writer. What a humorist. Hey, if you've never read a Patrick McManus book, look it up. Patrick McManus, what is it? Never Sniff a Gift Fish and something about a bicycle. I don't remember all the titles. There are 3 or 4 collections of his short stories. They're an easy read. I call it a great bathroom book. While things might get kind of messy because of the way you're laughing, you will absolutely roll on the floor with these things. What funny stories he's got. Let's go to South Africa. Paver. Ron, I absolutely love your new videos. Thanks for doing those. I know you've had many questions about and great videos covering silencers, and maybe I've missed this one. I have been considering fitting silencers to some of my bolt-action rifles for my hunting trips. In terms of the impact on accuracy on the rifle and tips for negating any negative impact on group size and overall accuracy, what are your tips and suggested best practices? Thanks. Paver, there really aren't any, because in my experience, you put a suppressor on the front of a barrel and you're going to get better accuracy. I don't know, at least 90% of the time. I hear every once in a while of someone who gets poorer accuracy, but I've never personally seen it. So I don't really think you need to worry about that. If you do, you can always work with a barrel resonator, and the easiest one is Limb Saver. At least they used to have one. It's kind of a big rubbery looking Oh, you slip it over the barrel, so it's kind of like a ring, fairly thick, cone-shaped, and you slip it over the barrel, and it changes the vibrations of the barrel based on where you've slipped it. Sort of absorbs some of those vibrations. And I've had those improve the accuracy of a rifle twice. Like it was getting 2-inch groups, it would get a 1-inch group. I would imagine if you have a suppressor on front and you're getting polar accuracy, you could take the suppressor off, put on that limb saver resonator, I think they call it the D resonator, and then push your muzzle back, suppressor back on, and move that ring back and forth, and probably balance things out and improve your accuracy. But I really don't think you're going to need to mess with it because the suppressor will do it for you. It will make things more accurate. Now, Betsy says to be sure to tell everyone that we have a recent video on silencers in which we interviewed an engineer who designs them. That one's got great information from the man who makes them. And he will tell you all about how they're made, what they do, why they do it, how you can clean them. Some of them are cleanable, some of them aren't. Some you can take apart and adjust the length on them, and just all kinds of things. It's really fun. And then we just recently interviewed Brandon Maddox from Silencer Central, and he not only talked about cleaning ones and which material you want to get, steel or aluminum or titanium, but also the process for getting one in the U.S. In South Africa and most European countries, you just go buy them like you would a sling practically. We're over in the U.S., we've got these goofy laws where you have to get a tax from the government and a little more complicated. But Silencer Central has fixed it, cleaned it up, made it simple for you. They'll do most of the red tape paperwork and made it real simple, and you can get, gosh, I think you can put your application in and within a matter of a couple of weeks, get your suppressor shipped right to your door. So those will be worth watching. I think the Brandon interview will be on a podcast. The other one is on Ron Spomer Outdoors' regular YouTube channel, so you can watch that. That one is out there already. All right, I hope that helped you out there, Paver. And a matter of fact, South Africa, that is where I borrowed a rifle with a suppressor on it in a .308 Winchester, believe it or not, and I shot a fallow deer running down the hillside. And I didn't have to worry about my ears. That all worked out great. Nathan from South Dakota. From South Africa to South Dakota. Which one's further south? We're going to find out. Hi, Ron. Big howdy from East River, South Dakota. Now, folks who are not South Dakotans need to understand something. This is really two states in one. There's eastern South Dakota and western South Dakota, and the twain shall never meet. So when I was a kid growing up in eastern South Dakota, it's corn country, farming country. Alfalfa, corn, beans, wheat, oats, small farms. West of the Missouri River, which divides the state roughly in half, it's less rainfall, drier conditions, and the soils aren't quite as fertile because it didn't get glaciated the way eastern did. And you got a lot of rolling hills, and it's cowboy country, cattlemen. And that's where the mule deer were, and the pronghorn were, and the Black Hills are out there further to the border of Wyoming. And that was big game country. Back in eastern South Dakota, pheasants, ducks in the wetlands, a few cottontails and jackrabbits, but no deer. They started coming on in the 60s, the whitetail. But boy, if you were a hunter and you dreamed of big game, you wanted to go West River. So this is where Nathan is coming from. He is East River. But it looks like he might want to go someplace else. Let's read on. As you know, South Dakota has all kinds of opportunities for various game. It's hard to pick one rifle and cartridge. With states like Minnesota, Colorado, and etc. so close, there are options for hunting there, too. Now, I've hunted in the mountains of Montana, in the backwoods of South Dakota, the plains of Kansas, the hills of Missouri. But, unfortunately, I've never owned my own dedicated hunting rifle. I've always borrowed my buddies'. Wow. Well, I've been in the Army or in the military for 12 years, and I moved around quite a bit, and I made it difficult to own a gun. But I'm less prone to that now because I'm out and I'm going to college. But that means now I'm unable to afford a really nice rifle. Oh, got problems here, buddy. I am not recoil shy. My animals were taken with a .243, a .270, and a .30-06. I've shot plenty more varieties of rifles and cartridges during various range sessions, so I'm considering the future. And as I get older, I'm sure my shoulder would appreciate that I use something less than the donkey kick of a 300 Win Mag. I'm pretty old school in that I don't use muzzle brakes. I'd like something good out to 500 yards at the max. It's a personal ethic of mine that I don't want to take game if I can help it past 300 yards. I still believe in the skills I learned from the old timers, such as being patient, in particular with shot placement, and getting as close as possible. Good stuff. I'm not into the newest and the shiniest boomers. I'm not looking for precision shooting, just a good rifle cartridge that goes bang and humanely takes game. I'd also like to be able to find ammo for it, fairly inexpensive ammo, and find it anywhere if I happen to travel. And yes, it does happen. I'd like to get really attuned with this rifle and cartridge because, as the old saying goes, beware the man with one rifle. He probably knows how to use it. I'm open to any and all suggestions. Thanks in advance. And go Coyotes. Oh, yeah, the Coyotes. That's the mascot for the university in Vermilion, South Dakota. I bet you that's where he is near. Well, good to hear from you, Nathan. I got to say, you're looking at something that's pretty easy to deliver these days. Almost every rifle manufacturer offers a starter rifle, really low cost. Generally, you're going to see a molded plastic stock, which is surprisingly good. A little bit of flex to them, but generally you're going to have a floated barrel, so there's no issues there. And surprisingly, these darn things will crank out some really good accuracy right out of the box. A lot of guys will report minute of angle or even better for a rifle that costs somewhere between $400 and $1,000. Usually that $400 to $700 range is where these are priced. Golly, to be able to buy a rifle like that, that's pretty remarkable. Now, if you don't like plastic stocks, you can later upgrade to an aftermarket wooden stock, whether it's solid walnut or a laminate. Right there in South Dakota, I think they're still in Mitchell, Boyd's gun stocks. They've got some just a huge selection, and it's just drop in. You drop in the barrel action, screw it on, and you're rolling. So you're going to have some options there. So I think you're coming down mostly to the cartridge that you're going to shoot. And you've already mentioned a couple of great ones. I wouldn't hesitate to hunt anything in North America with a 270. It's already been done. I've taken elk with them. I haven't done a moose, but I wouldn't hesitate. 30-06, that's the classic versatile do-everything cartridge right there. Personally, I like the 7 Rem Mag. I think it gives me a little more reach, a little faster, not a heck of a lot more recoil than the 30-06. It only shoots 175 grain bullets, but with today's super performing controlled expansion bullets, I find a 170 grain, .284 inch diameter bullet from a 7 Rem Mag more than powerful enough to handle everything and anything. So I don't get too worked up that I can't load a 200 or a 220 grain bullet on that as I could on the 30-06. But suit yourself. It's all going to work. I don't think the game is going to notice the difference, but you might. And of course, you can go with a lot of different cartridges, all the new stuff coming out, but that's more for the rifle nuts who like to play around. The 6.8 Western, the 6.5 PRC. But instead of the 30-06, I might suggest that you look at the 308 if you want to go with the 30. Even though I run it down all the time as being inferior, if someone wants an over-the-counter rifle that's probably got the best chance of being super accurate, that's probably it. And you've got a huge selection of ammo. Everybody makes ammo for the 308 in a lot of different sizes and everything else. So that's going to meet all the criteria you want for finding ammo. And you can usually find it at a sales price just because of the competition. 30-06 is similar, but not quite as popular anymore as it used to be. So the 308 seems to have taken over in that category. Now, the 30-06 is obviously an incredibly versatile cartridge, but I just think the 308 these days has kind of superseded it for the most popular, and you're going to find a lot more ammo at lower prices and more variety as well. And I've said it many times, I love the 7 Rem Mag, and I think it's probably superior to the 30-06 just because a little more reach with it. It'll shoot a little flatter, drift a little less in the wind and all, but the game's never going to know the difference. You just might. So I think you're going to be set with any of those, Nathan. I don't know what to tell you other than, like you said, buy one that fits you, that you like, in a cartridge that you know is quite versatile, and you probably will be that. Beware the guy who only has one rifle because he knows how to use it. Best of luck hunting in South Dakota and anywhere else you find yourself. There's just a lot of world out there to explore, and you are going to love it. All right, that looks like the last of them that the team has brought to my attention. Now we have to pick out our comment of the week. And I think I'm going to throw you a curveball. Oh boy, that ring tells us it is time for our comment of the week. Before we get there, I do want to thank Doug Adams for loaning us his wonderful sculptures. Doug produces these freedom bells for sale around the country in galleries. He has me shoot holes in the plate. This is why he calls them the freedom bell. He's a big believer in the Second Amendment, and he likes to ring in freedom with his handmade freedom bells. You can find him at dougadams.com, I believe. Just search for Doug Adams Bell Sculptures. Or you can go to Ron Spomer Outdoors website, where we have several of these listed for sale. If you don't find the gallery out west somewhere to buy one, you can get those there. Now, looking through all of these, I've had some really good questions, but I am going to go for my commenter of the week with Mark, who called us all rubes and pigeons and complained because we were concentrating on just getting more viewers and making some money. Horrible thing to do. I'm sorry, Mark, but this is America, where individuals are free to do that sort of thing. And I think our viewers are probably getting their money's worth, considering how much they pay to watch these on YouTube. Now, okay, admittedly, if you join our SOTV to see these all without any ads in them, you do have to pay some money. But if you're watching them for free on YouTube and you find out that I don't provide any useful information, I will give you your money back. But thanks for reminding us all of how great it is to be a citizen of the United States of America, where we are free to try our hand at anything that can support our families and provide some value to somebody. And we have got the freedom to watch these or not. And you've got that same freedom, Mark. So I hope you enjoy not watching these useless podcasts and videos from Ron Spomer Outdoors. And of course, part of the reason I do these is not just to make money. I got other ways of doing that if I need to. I've been a writer for decades and decades, and I got into this because I found that I could reach more people without that middleman in between. I don't know if you know it, but the magazines would not let me, at least, write about anything and everything because they had certain advertisers they had to stroke. So if I wrote about brand Y rifle and they had an advertiser who was brand C rifle, they would ask me to change it to the brand C rifle, but that's not reality. So it's kind of refreshing to be able to report honestly on what we're discovering. And I also like to share, and I think it's worth sharing, the things that I've picked up over 50 plus years of doing this. It seems like, gosh, I learned it through the school of hard knocks, and I know a lot of my younger friends are always happy to discover things that I show them and or tell them, so why not share that with everybody? As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't cost you anything, and if you think that I am sharing some useful information, do write in and let us know. But if you agree with Mark and you think these are pretty much useless, tell me why and what I might do to improve them, because it really does make a difference to us to know that we are making a difference for you. I want us all to be banded together in an important job of protecting our Second Amendment freedoms and protecting our natural places and our wildlife that we so much love. This is Ron Spomer, Hunt Honest and Shoot Straight.